Attention bowlers, we are going to get started. Please finish your warm-up frames. We'll be changing to scoring in just a moment. Welcome to the expanse of 3-ball spare, and welcome to Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts. This is Bryan Hebert at Chris Curley. I'm Steve Kelly, here to tell you the story of today's match here in Amesbury, Massachusetts. Good as always to have you along with us. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. The match format is 5 strings with 14 points on offer. It's 2 points per string and 4 for total pinfall. If there is a tie, we will be splitting the points right down the middle. I'm Steve Kelly. I'll be with you in the audio for today's match, and it's going to be Bryan Hebert and Chris Curley. With Bryan Hebert good to go, and we are ready to start here at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. It'll be Bryan Hebert leading off first. Bryan Hebert, first ball. It's a working box. Candlepin is 3 balls per frame. Play the wood as it lies. Strikes are rare. It's a game of spares. I want to thank you for tuning in. This match was played on Sunday, September 21st at about 1:46 p.m. local time Eastern. Let's talk about a couple of things. And first of all, let's talk about Bryan Hebert's 10 box. To start things out, that's 10 after 1 for Mr. Hebert. Okay, so if you've never seen Candlepin bowling, I hope you enjoy the match today. This is a unique take on bowling from the heart of New England and Eastern Canada. This broadcast should have subtitles and live captioning enabled. Do enable it if you enjoy this feature. Also consider the transcript feature if you're watching this from YouTube. There's Bryan Hebert with a 7 drop, leaving the 1, 2, and the 10. Bryan Hebert will connect with the object pin lightly, connects off the left side wall, and takes the 2 pin, leaving the 10 pin on the field in the end zone. And Bryan Hebert will take a 9 in the second for 19 after 2. Folks, in addition to fun facts and anecdotes, I'll provide the play-by-play action and scoring to the best of my ability. Have a look at the unofficial scoreboard on your screen. The bowlers maintain the official league records separately. The stream score is unofficial. I may occasionally pause to verify scores if things seem out of sync, and I appreciate your patience when that happens. There's an 8 drop for Bryan Hebert. We're getting better and better with every box. On the first ball on the head pin, he leaves the 2 and the 4. Bryan Hebert's a little bit off to the left. Crossbody throw. A 9 or 10 on the retry. And he'll get a 10 box out of it. He'll miss the second and get the third. We call that in our little universe a Paul Grant special. And miss the second, get the third. $1 donation to Candlepins per cancer per occurrence. We'll talk more about Candlepins per cancer in the Paul Grant special in just a moment here. Bryan Hebert's on the head pin again. 7 drop. 1 down from his 8 drop previously. That's the 2-4-7 for Bryan Hebert. And Bryan Hebert will check in with a spare. The honors goes to Bryan Hebert for the first mark of the game. Now let's watch that shot again. 2-4-7. It was a nice shot. Actually, we may not have a second because Bryan's already ready to fire on the follow-up. The follow-up results in a 5 fill for Bryan Hebert. Missed the head pin, but got a good mix. Some on the left, some on the right. Bryan Hebert's all over it, but the pins just mixed a little bit oddly. Let's turn that into a leave of the 5 and the 9. Hebert for the 10 box, and he'll miss, and that will be an 8 for Bryan Hebert. That's 5 boxes, and that will be 52 after 5. For Bryan Hebert, here's the first score update. We'll be switching to the main scoreboard every 5 boxes, and we'll verify the scores as well. It should be 52 after 5 for Bryan Hebert, and I'm going to just double check that, and it looks like a 52 is confirmed for Bryan Hebert. To start things out here, Bryan Hebert is the away bowler from Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire, and Chris Curley now is up to bat, up to bowl. Here he is. Welcoming back Chris Curley. He took a season off from the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I covered him 2 seasons ago, several times. Do check that out. Those matches, I believe, are on Candlepin Bowling Network. Here's Chris Curley. He'll start out with a 6 drop. Goes off to the right of the head pin. Put 6 pins down. Oops. And there's a spare for Bryan Hebert. My apologies on the button mismatch there. I mean, not Bryan Hebert, Chris Curley, excuse me. Yes, the other bowler is up to bowl. And, ooh, that's a bit of a misfire there by Chris Curley, so that will be nothing on the fill, unfortunately. Off to the right, into the gutter. The follow-up, though, is more on target. He'll drop 6. Caleri minus the 2, 1-4-7-9. And he'll make that a 7 box for Chris Curley. Chris Curley, our home bowler from Riverwalk Lanes this year. 2 seasons ago, he bowled out of Batwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. He's bowled 1 match so far. He's a season record of 12-2. It was on the road. Home record TBD. This will be his first home match of the season. He has a season average of 90.6 and a away average of 90.6. No home average just yet. High single 100, high series 453. 5 spares, 10 tens in the season so far. 30% perfect box percentage and 453 pins so far this season. And here's Chris Curley, and ooh, he'll poke 1 out. And that will be a 6 box for Mr. Curley. And Chris Curley, ooh, that ball is still just a little bit off to the right. Just has to make a bit of a course correction there. Into the channel on the right side. For the follow-up ball, the second ball of this box. On the head pin there. Drops 8. 6-10. Chris Curley faced Mario Ameno in round 1 on September 14th with a 453 series, and there's a 10 box for Chris Curley. What could have been a spare, but ends up being a 10. That'll put him at 33 after 4. Chris Curley's most recent match, he took a 453 series against Mario Ameno with 12 points, 5 spares, 10 tens, 16 for 50 on the head pin with 6 splits. Chris Curley, oh, he touches 10 and moves 10, but the 8 pin stands tall. Moves a bit but doesn't go down. Can't give him a strike off of that, but it was a great ball. And the wood deflects everything. The ball even gives it a second chance, and it doesn't come back to take the 8 pin. Robbed twice, Chris Curley just was. Yikes. And he'll miss that for a 9. So after 5, I believe it is 42 after 5. It's paper and pencil scoring here, and it looks like 57. So I'll double check. Oh, excuse me, it was a spare and a 9. My apologies. It's a 51 for Chris Curley after all said and done. Bryan Hebert drops 1. Again, the stream score is unofficial. I follow the bowlers. Bryan Hebert, after a 1 drop, second ball sails off to the left in the left corner. 52-51 is the paper score, and we are in sync on the digital score, which is separate. And Bryan Hebert will take a 6 in the 6th box. First box of the second half of the first game. That's 58-6 for Bryan Hebert. Bryan Hebert in his 3rd ACST season. He'll drop 4 so far. This year, Bryan Hebert bowls out of Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. That's where Chris Curley used to bowl out of. Bryan Hebert on the follow-up, he leaves the 1, the 9, and the 10. Bryan Hebert has bowled 1 match so far. He has a record of 4-10, and that was an away match. Season average 90.8 so far. And that will be, with leaving the 1 and the 10, that's an 8 box for Bryan Hebert for 66-7. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. We're in Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts for some Candlepin bowling here today. Bryan Hebert pins are still mixing, and it'll be a drop of 6 after the pins settle. If you've never seen Candlepin bowling, we do not clear the deadwood down there. You play it as it lies as long as it is just within the end zone down there. Bryan Hebert for the follow-up. A little bit off to the right. Leaves the 1, 2, 7, and 9. And with that mix, it'll be a 7 box for Mr. Hebert. With 1 mark this game so far. Chris Curley 2 marks by my count. 51 after 5 for Chris Curley, 52 after 5 for Hebert, 73 and 8 for Hebert. And Bryan Hebert will punch a right side half Worcester, punching the 3 and the 9. A quarter Worcester is when you only punch the front pin, and that can happen. And on the outside hit of the head pin, great bid by Bryan Hebert. He takes all but the 7. And it'll take a hard-fought 9 box, a hard-earned 9 box out of a half Worcester shot. I know that is a challenging one to overcome, but Bryan Hebert was able to turn that into a decent box of 9. 82 and 9. Bryan Hebert's a little bit off to the left this time on the first ball. And now he's got a left side Worcester. Just a clinic of half Worcesters. So it's a 2 drop on the second ball. Third ball will complete the frame. He's on the outside hit once again. A great follow-up shot, and that will be an 8 box for 90 for the first game for Bryan Hebert. By my count, I will verify that score in just a moment. Tentative score 90 after 1. All right. It is 95 on the yeah. Should be 90, I think. Yep, I think there was a math error on the paper copy, so Bryan should have 90. It's the same boxes on the paper copy versus the digital copy. I think it was just the totals got a little off, but boxes are correct. Here's Chris Curley. And he'll put 6 down to open up. 1, 4, 7, 9 for Chris Curley. And for the spare, he'll take all but the 7. Great bid on the center pin. All good. And for the 10 box, he's got the 10 box. That should be 61 after 6 for Chris Curley. And Chris Curley will go off to the left for a 1 shot. For the follow-up on the head pin, nice recovery there. He leaves the 5, the 8, and the 9. The 5 triangle. And it's going to be a 7 box for Chris Curley. That's going to be 68 in 7. We are at Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts today. Great house, little small house in Amesbury. Cute little area in the busy town of Amesbury. Mark Ritchie is the owner of Riverwalk Lanes. You may see him occasionally in the background near the front desk. It's a 4 drop so far. And Chris Curley will take that drop and make it a 9, leaving the 10. And it'll be a 10 box for Chris Curley. That's 78 and 8. It is a difference of 5 between Chris Curley and Bryan Hebert right now. At the equivalent point in the game and the match, it's game 1 of 5. It'll be Chris Curley on the 1-3. Pin still mixing. 2 and 10. It'll be a split. Split requires the head pin to be hit and down. Well, not necessarily hit, but it has to be down. You can get a split without a head pin stat if the head pin is taken out by something else. That's the 2 and the 10. Chris Curley's the first split of any of our bowlers actually so far. And Chris Curley will miss just off to the left a little bit. And he'll make it an 8 box. For 86 and 9, that's Chris Curley's score update right now. 1 box to go before we assess the first game. Bryan Hebert has a confirmed 90. Chris Curley next. Appreciate you watching. Just finishing this first game of 5. There's plenty of Candlepin bowling to go today, folks. Chris Curley is respotting the pins because there were a few pins missing when they were put down. Happens now and then. In 10 pin and Candlepin. I'm sure you understand. Mechanical things and whatnot. Chris Curley will put down 6. It's the 1, the 8, the 6, and the 10 for Chris Curley. Oh, and he's on the head pin, but a little bit too full. 8, 6, 10. It'll be a 79 or 10. Chris Curley will take the first game, though, so that's 2 points in Chris Curley's favor so far. And he will make it an 8 box. That'll be a 94 for Chris Curley, I believe. We will double check those scores in just a moment. And by we, I mean me. 94 is confirmed. These 2 scores are confirmed here at the beginning. Bryan Hebert 90, Chris Curley 94. Here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour as we head over to the second game here. Appreciate you watching. In the early season of a brand new season of the ACST. And here we go. Here's Bryan Hebert. We'll start things off with a 3-drop. Took out the left side Candlepin corner. And, oh, he's going to get a mix. Oh, nearly the rest of them go down, but the 5-pin stays, the kingpin. That's the kind of action you can expect in Candlepin. Sometimes you can get some great sidewall action. For the 10 box, Bryan Hebert's got it. That's 10 after 1. Fairly even in the perfect boxes department. Both bowlers at about 36% right now. And Bryan Hebert will miss off to the right for the first ball. And the second ball turns it into a 6-pack. That's 6 pins clustered on the left half of the lane. For the follow-up, it's going to be a 9 box for Bryan Hebert. 19 after 2 now. Yes, again, we're at Riverwalk lanes since 2013, also known as Lafayette lanes. There are 2 Friday Night Pro Leagues that bowl out of Riverwalk. There's the Lafayette team, and then there's also the Riverwalk team, honoring the legacy of the original name as well as the modern name. I believe Tony Levesque covers a lot of their matches, so do check them out on Tony Levesque's YouTube and TikTok channels. 1-6-10 for Bryan Hebert, no mark. This will be for a 10 box, and it's a 7 for Bryan Hebert. That's 26 after 3. Bryan Hebert so far, his high single is 106. His high series is 454. 1 strike, 5 spares, 8 tens. Perfect box percentage 28, 454 seasonal pinfall so far. Bryan Hebert's on the pocket. Will that 4 fall into the 5? It's thinking about it. It does go eventually, but not into the 5. So that's a 9 drop for Bryan Hebert on the head pin. That wood is going to be difficult. You see that down there, the way that is mixing. I'm worried about that. It's going to deflect the ball, I'm sure. It's a hard shot for any bowler. Yep, I was worried precisely about that. That's the kind of shot you can expect, and I heard Bryan even say he was expecting that to happen, and yeah, it's It's unfortunate, but that's the game. And Bryan Hebert will take a 9, leaving the kingpin up there. That's 35 after 4. Bryan 311's Hebert. He bowled 3 spares with a 1 fill in a row at Lakeside on October 27th, 2024. We're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that the fun times. It was hilarious. He couldn't stop marking, but the first ball was just so unfortunate. It was like quarter Worcester, a corner shot, or it was just we were just laughing so hard by the third one. Bryan 311's Hebert. Okay, he takes out the left Candlepin corner and now the right Candlepin corner, and now he's got the center diamond to shoot at for a 10 box. Bryan Hebert's all-time high single is 158 at the Putnam Street King of the Hill that he bowled. And that will be an 8 box for Bryan Hebert. No marks here in the first half of the second game. That's 43 after 5, potentially. I will double check that score in just a moment. And 43 is confirmed. Saying hello again to Chris Curley, our home bowler from here in Amesbury. Talking with Chris Curley before the match began, and he was remarking there's a lot of ACST bowlers bowling out of Riverwalk lanes in particular this year. So space available at Riverwalk for ACST bowlers. Chris Curley's on the pocket, and he leaves the goalpost, splits 8 for the opening ball of the second game. Piece of wood in between the goalposts, the 4 and the 6. I don't think it's going to really have much of a factor in play. We'll see how Chris Curley throws it. And he'll take the 4, and a piece of wood will be in the gutter, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a fair... Well, it's going to roll back into play, actually. Let's see if it turns. We saw this happen in the Friday Night Pro League for a strike. Nothing doing this time. Rolls safely out of play. Oh, and Chris Curley, the ball into the gutter and actually into the opposite lane. But third ball and a miss is still a miss, so that will be 9 after 1 for Chris Curley. Just not expecting that to take a dive into lane 4. The opposite ball return of lane 4. Chris Curley, a nice mix off the right side. 1-2-5 is what he's shooting at now. 7 drop. And he'll miss the object and leave the object. The head pin is left down there. For the 10 box, he's got it. That's 19 after 2 for Chris Curley with that 10 box. Appreciate you watching. I'm Steve Kelly on the call for the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Class E North, Bryan Hebert at Chris Curley. And Bryan Hebert will mix down 5. 1, 5, 4, 7, 8. For the spare, he's on the object pin with a 5 in the A, just could not be convinced to go down. And he'll make it a 9, leaving the kingpin. 9, 10, 9 for Chris Curley. That puts him at 28 after 3. As he retrieves the ball that went into the other lane. We have two ball returns for 2 lanes here at Riverwalk as the old school style ball returns pairings. Chris Curley will punch the 4 for a lemon drop. That's a first ball punch out on the 4 to 6 pin. That's a $1 donation to Candlepins for Cancer if the bowler participates in that. Candlepins number 4, cancer.com, a great charity run by the great Paul Grant and Al Johnson. Do check it out. 13679 for Chris Curley on the second ball. Third ball completes this box. And he'll make it a great 10 box. That's Chris Curley with a 10. And that will be 38 after 4 for Chris Curley. I believe I can sneak a replay in here real quickly. Watch this shot by Chris Curley. Watch that go. On the outside. Bam. And now the follow-up. It's for a 10 box, so this is not a fill, but it'll drop 9. Leaving the 7 pin. Just the 7 pin for Chris Curley. And he's got it. That's a spare for Chris Curley. great one to sit on. That's 48 and a bonus after 5. I will double check that math in a second. And it is 48 and a bonus after 5. Confirmed. So Chris Curley with 3 spares so far. Bryan Hebert with just 1. 1.5 games in this 5-game series today on the ACST. Bryan Hebert at Chris Curley, Class E North. You're watching the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. It's great to have you along with us on this Sunday afternoon in Amesbury, Mass. An early fall, sunny Sunday afternoon. Not too warm, not too cool. Really, really nice weather out today. Bryan Hebert will take 3 off the right side to start out. Bryan Hebert's on the pocket. Oh, and he'll mix down everything with the 7 and the 8. It's a good attempt. Right where the ball should have gone. But sometimes once that ball leaves your hand, there is not much you can do past that. And Bryan Hebert, arms up for the field goal. Can't give him 3, but how about 8? That's 51 and 6 for Bryan Hebert now. Bryan Hebert's on the pocket, drops 6, maybe 7. It would be great if that 7 pin can figure its way down, but not quite. 7-10, 3-6. Oh, and he rides that rail, stays on, and he takes all out, but the 3 got way more pins than I was expecting. And he's got a 10 box, Bryan Hebert does. That's 61 and 7 for Bryan Hebert now. Bryan Hebert will take the 10 pin out for the first ball. He's on the pocket there and mixes down a couple more to leave a 3, 5, 7, and 9. For the 10 box, he'll make it 7. That's 68 and 8 for Bryan Hebert. Bryan Hebert wants to throw a 4-bagger, but it didn't technically count. He threw it during warm-ups in the Wednesday Night Mixed League at Leda Lanes a long time ago after being taunted to do so by his teammate Dan Lang. And Bryan Hebert's on the head pin there. Nearly mixes down everything but the 5. It's a 9 drop. Much better first ball there. It's the king pin. The wood, I like the wood, so we'll see how this goes. Oh, well, the center wood, not the wood on the right, unfortunately. That'll be a mark left on the table. For the 10 box, he's got it for a 10. 78 and 9 for Bryan Hebert. 1 more to go. 3 head pin shots for 9 with 1 split for Bryan Hebert. Chris Curley is currently 2 for 5 with 1 split. Bryan Hebert looking to come out of here with some points today. He's currently 4 and 10. Let's see. Bryan Hebert just narrowly a couple planks off the head pin, drops 6, 1, 7, 10, and 3. The jack plus the 3. 6 drop. Waiting for the wood to settle. We have to wait for all dead wood to finish rolling before we can throw, according to the rule book. And Bryan Hebert will go into the hole where the 6 pin was, and it will remain a 6 drop. And on the outside, oh man, what could have been? But that'll be a 10 box for Bryan Hebert. 2 PGSs in a row, technically, and that will put Bryan at 88 in the second game. 88 is confirmed, looks like. So 88 in a 2-game total of 178 for Bryan Hebert so far. Say hello to Chris Curley as he prepares his next 5 boxes to complete the second game here on the ACST. And here he is, Chris Curley, after taking a season off. He's on the 3-6 pocket, takes 6 out, fills with 6. That'll be 54 and 5 for Chris Curley. He sails off into the void where the 7 pin was. 1, 2, 4, 8 are still in the deck. For the follow-up, A 6 box after a 6 fill. That's 60 and 6. So far in the head-to-head department, Bryan has been winning more boxes than Chris Curley, but he is 4 boxes behind. So we'll see if that statistic holds. And Chris Curley will split 7 next. That's the 278. And he's got it for a spare. The 278 go down for Chris Curley. That's 70 in a ball and 7 for Chris Curley now. And that ball, he started from the right side corner and didn't tail as much as I think he wanted it to. But a 6 fill is still a 6 fill for Chris Curley. Another 16 on the board, 76 and 7. Ball's a little bit off to the right. 1, 2, 4 left on the deck. 1 pin taken out by proxy. And he'll make it a 10 box. Chris Curley on the board for a 10, 86 and 8 for Mr. Chris Curley. And a head pin shot. Oh, 5 pin, half down, half up. Stands back up to fight. 9 drop for Chris Curley on the pocket. And that's a spare for Chris Curley. Another one. That's his 3rd mark of the game. That's 96 and a bonus for Chris Curley. He's 4 for 9 in the head pin with 2 splits as of right now. Filling that spare with, he's on a 1-3 pocket, and he'll mix down 6. His 3rd 6 fill of the game. Got the left side accordion to contend with. Piece of wood in front of it. Oh, and I thought I had a chance, but the way that wood was angled, that was where the trouble began. So the 7 pin is left down there. And he'll make it a 10 box. That will put Chris Curley over 100, 112 to be exact. I will verify that score in just a moment for Chris Curley. 112 for a 2-game total of 206. Yes, 112 is confirmed for Chris Curley. 94 and 112 for Chris Curley, 90 and 88 for Bryan Hebert. That is the story of the 2nd game here on the ACST. We will be moving on to the 3rd game here in just a hot second. Appreciate you watching. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. And welcome to Game 3. Bryan Hebert will open up with a 1 drop on the 10 pin. The follow-up, 2 more pins down in the end zone. Center diamond and 4 triangle. 3 pins down, 7 pins up. And Bryan will make it a 7 to start things out in the 3rd game here at the ACST. Bryan Hebert Jr., the son of Bryan Hebert Sr. and Marta Hebert. Both are very active bowlers still to this day. We actually bowl again this evening at Lakeside Lanes in Manchester, New Hampshire for the Sunday Night Mixed League. So this is bowling stop 1 of 2 today. Bryan Hebert puts down 9 on the first ball, leaving the 10 pin this time, the pin that he got in the first ball of the previous box. Will he stay on? Oh, man, that ball wasn't in the gutter and wasn't on the 10 pin. It was somehow in that very thin slice of air in between. And that will be a 9 box for Bryan Hebert. 16 after 2 in this 3rd game here. Bryan is a secondary manufacturing lead at Microspec Corporation. And he'll take 3 more out. Half Worcester plus the 5 on the left side. And it becomes a symmetrical 1, 4, 6, 7, 10 leave. becomes a 7 box for Bryan. That's 23 after 3 for Mr. Bryan Hebert. Ball's off to the right, 1, 3, 7, 8. 6 drop. Piece of wood may be out of play. We'll see where that ends up taking us. I think it may be in, might not be. Double checking on that. We're going to have someone check on that in a moment. It might be right on the line. Chris Curley will take a look to confirm what's going on with that. He's looking at it. He thinks maybe it's in. I can't quite tell. There are some other houses where I could tell you straight up if it's in or out. I am not exactly familiar enough with Riverwalk lanes to be able to tell you here if it is or not, so we'll find out. We'll get the judgment from Chris in a moment. He says it's in. There is a thin line down there that does determine objectively if it is in play or out of play. It's just visually it's tough to tell because the position of lights and everything is different in every house. In Lakeside, the lights are lined up right on that line, so it's kind of easy to tell. But here, not. I don't know. Oh, and that wood. Yeah, Bryan wishes that wood was not there because that deflected the ball away. Candlepin has a series of frustrations we don't experience in 10-pin. And Bryan will make that. I think it's going to be a 9. Let's see what that wood does. It'll be a 9. 9 box for Bryan Hebert. That'll put him at 32 after 4. Bryan Hebert's on the pocket. Almost a strike. The wood was heading towards the 4 and the 7, but got deflected by another piece of wood between the sidewall and the gutter. 8 drop on the head pin for Bryan Hebert. That's the 4 and the 7. And the wood is still settling. It looks like it's going to settle in a fairly favorable place. You have to hit the gap between the 2 pieces of wood there. That's my guess. Oh, but not quite at that angle, though. Not enough leverage for the 4 pin to go with the 7. That will sail into the gutter. That will be a 9 box for Bryan Hebert. That's 41 after 5 for Bryan Hebert. Give you a score update as soon as I confirm it as well. 41 is confirmed for Bryan Hebert. Chris Curley up next. You're watching the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. My name is Steve Kelly, your audio guide and host for this match today. And here's Chris Curley on lane 4. And he'll take 3 out in the back right corner. We call it the Candlepin Corner. The Candlepin Corner is a great YouTube channel. Check out the ACST podcast, in particular on Candlepin Corner, hosted by Danny Finn and Corey Alisi, called From the Office of the Commissioner. 2 great episodes where they recap some great games across all of the ACST universe, highlighting some games and talking all about it, as well as the state of the league and all of that. That will be a 5 box for Chris Curley to start out the 3rd game here. Bryan Hebert's at 41 after 5. Bryan Hebert has no strikes, 1 spares. Chris Curley has no strikes, 5 spares so far. Bryan Hebert is a 28% perfect box percentage, while Chris Curley is currently hovering at 44%. Chris Curley will take 2 off the left side this time. Bryan Hebert has a max game of 191 right now. If he can be perfect from here on out, Chris Curley a little under 275, not counting this box. Chris Curley working box. He's got the 12589. And he'll make that a 10 box. That's 15 after 2 for Mr. Chris Curley. Bryan Hebert currently averaging 73. Chris Curley averaging 74 as of right now. Chris Curley's on the 1-2 pocket, and it looks nearly like a strike, but the 10 pin wiggles but doesn't fall down. 9 drop on the head pin for Chris Curley in the pocket. Waiting for the wood to settle. Wood is going to probably be right about maybe the center of the deck. That's where it's going to end up. can either play the wood or play the pin directly. I recommend playing the pin directly. It's also a safe bet to play the wood, though. Just one of those things where in the pro leagues, it's actually usually recommended to play the pin directly, even if there is a piece of wood, just to remove the potential unpredictability factor. But that one was pretty safe. And Chris Curley is on the pocket for a good 6-fill. He can't seem to get out of the 6-fill void this match so far. At least the past couple of marks. He'll punch the 5 and leave the 2, the 4, and the 7. And the 7 box it shall be for Chris Curley. That's 38 and 4. And Chris Curley on the head pin. He'll take down 7 and leave the bell, the 3-5-6. That's a term that Kim Baker was using at the Friday Night Pro League. Says, ring the bell. And Chris Curley tries to ring the bell. He leaves the 6. I was calling it the Triforce of Power, or the Triforce of Wisdom, or the Triforce of Courage, depending on where it is. But ring that bell is also kind of a nice ring to it, don't you think? Let me know in the comments what you want to call that shot. That's a 9 box for Chris Curley, and that should be 47 after 5 by my count. Double check those scores in just a moment. 47 is correct as I look over the paper copy. Chris Curley 47, Bryan Hebert 41. Chris Curley up in the game by 6. Chris Curley currently up in the total by 34. 253 to Bryan Hebert's 219. Fairly close match, but Chris Curley so far has 2 points and working on 2 more points if he can take this 3rd game here. And that is currently your score update here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, brought to you by 3 Ball Spare Conglomerate, as well as the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour Committee. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. You're watching Bryan Hebert at Chris Curley today. And if the off chance you do enjoy this content, please be sure to subscribe for more great matches. And there is a great strike by Bryan Hebert. Coming off the bench, the best way to throw a strike. Get up there, be hungry, and prosper. Here's Bryan Hebert, that replay on that strike, if I have a chance to show it. Yes, look at that. And here's the follow-up, though. Wasting no time. Bryan Hebert dropping 6. Get 2 balls on the strike fill. 1, 2, 4, 9 for Bryan Hebert so far. Ball bounces a little bit and goes a little bit off target. That'll be a 7 fill on the strike. 58 and 6, and then 66 and 7 for Bryan Hebert with that 8 box. Bryan Hebert will take the 10 pin out on the first ball. Bryan Hebert takes a few more out. It's going to be a leave of 4 pins on the deck. 1, 2, 4, 6. For the 10 box, and he'll make it a 7. That's 73 and 8 for Bryan Hebert now. That's a 4 drop, half Worcester plus some additional pins. 1, 3, 6, 4, 7, 9 for Bryan Hebert. And he wanted to hit the head pin on the outside, but just grazed it, unfortunately. So that's the risk of hitting on the outside. Great impact when you can hit it correctly, but if you graze it, that's the risk. Bryan Hebert will take a 5. 78 and 9 for Bryan Hebert. And I'll see if I can get you some facts about Bryan Hebert while we're waiting. Currently 4 and 10 with 17 matches remaining. He's bowled 1 match so far. Home record is TBD. He's been just on the road so far, 4 and 10. Bryan Hebert punches down center, drops 5, splits 5, spread eagle minus the 7. And I like symmetry. 2, 3, 4, 6 now. That's a hard shot to shoot at. Even if the 7-pin was there, the spread eagle is no joke. Not a lot of bowlers make that. Ed Sargent is the last one I remember who made that shot, as well as myself. That's a 7 box for Bryan Hebert. That will be 85 in the third. 85 in the third string for a 3-game total of 263 for Bryan Hebert. 90, 88, and 85. Chris Curley currently at 47 after 5 in the third game for a 2.5-game total of 253, pending these next 5 boxes. The 85 for Bryan Hebert is confirmed as I look over. It'll be Chris Curley's turn next for the next 5 boxes. Some footage there from the Pro Series doubles event in Millis, and then that's some footage from Bayberry Bowling Center in Spencer, Massachusetts from earlier this summer, a 10-string tournament of the Amateur Candlepin Bowlers Tour. That was a great tournament. I threw my high 10 in that tournament, so I'm a little biased. I did like that house, the way it fell. A little hot there that day, though. Chris Curley, 5 pins go down. Missed the head pin, 1, 3, 4, 7, 8. For the follow-up, on the head pin, mixes everything down but the 3 and the 7. And he'll make it a 10 box, Chris Curley. 57 in 6. Chris Curley 3 for 6 on the head pin this game. Bryan Hebert went 4 for 10 on the head pin. Chris Curley in the 1-3 pocket. We'll split 8. It's the 4-6 goalposts. This will be an interesting shot to spare. It'll be pretty if it goes. And he'll take the 4 on the wood and leave the 6 untouched. Chris Curley, though, pinning it out. Helps when every pin counts. That's 67 in 7 for Chris Curley. Chris Curley is off to the left, but 7 pins go down, 8 pins go down. It's the 1 and the 10. A leave of the high-low jack minus the 7 for Chris Curley. And wow, the wood was really the limiting factor there. He hit it right, but wood just mixed weird along with the sidewall. So no mark for Chris Curley. It'll be a 9 or a 10 box. Potentially his third 10 box in a row. Could be a triple X throwdown. What's going to happen? Watch with me. That goes into the gutter. So that will be a 9 for Chris Curley, waving that off. That's 76 and 8. Thanks for tuning in to the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, the best place to watch some of the most exciting Candlepin matches from a wide selection of bowlers from all skill levels. We're having a fantastic time here in Amesbury, Massachusetts at Riverwalk Lanes. It's Chris Curley defending the house against Bryan Hebert. That's a 6 drop for Chris Curley so far. 1-7-10-2. Oh, and he misses the object. He takes out all the pins but the object. Don't you hate it when that happens? It's like you feel like you can hit anything but the freaking pin you were heading for. You were aiming for, that is. And, well, there is a 9 box for Chris Curley. That's 85 and 9. Tying Bryan Hebert's 85, but Chris Curley has 1 more box. Barring no disasters, Chris Curley should take the 3rd game. But we'll see what happens here. And that's 3 down. That will be the 3rd game for Chris Curley. At least 88 and counting. And that's a spare for Chris Curley. A methodical hit on the pocket. Results in a spare, 95 and for Chris Curley. Let's see if we can sneak in a replay. The pin setters are really fast here, and I feel like I have less time to show replays here compared to other houses, but there's Chris Curley's spare. And here's the follow-up. wasting no time, and he'll drop 3 for a 7-pack. That's 98. Game 3 for Chris Curley. Unofficially until I confirm it, but it's 304, 3-game total for Chris Curley so far. Bryan Hebert 263. That is confirmed. I'll double check the 98 for Chris Curley in just a moment. The 98 is confirmed for Chris Curley. 304, 3-game total. Time to move to the third game here as our bowlers prepare, as well as myself. Great to have you along. I'm Steve Kelly. Hope you're having a great time watching this match. Preempted by NFL football for sure. I know we kind of have Pats. We have a ear to the ground on the Pats game right now. But I hope they're doing well. I don't know. I haven't seen the score. I don't think I want to look. Bryan Hebert misses on the first ball into the gutter. Second ball overcorrects to the left. 7 up, 3 down. And Bryan Hebert will make that a really generous 9-box. Good out. 9 after 1 for Bryan Hebert. Chris Curley pulling ahead in the boxes 1 department. In the head-to-head stat, the bowlers are not directly bowling head-to-head, but I like to measure that stat still, regardless. It's just kind of a nice, interesting what-if kind of stat. That's a Curley for Bryan Hebert. 5-drop. Bryan Hebert, slightly thin outside hit on the head pin. It was the right kind of idea, but it just didn't kick over to the left enough to take out the 2, the 4, and the 7. No mark. 7, 8, 9, or 10. That's going to be waved off as no good. That will be a 7-box for Bryan Hebert. 16 after 2. Here in the 4th game of 5 here on the ACST, the Atlantic Candlepin Single Store. Stick with us all season for tons of matches from all different skill levels. Classes A to E this year. Bryan Hebert not on the head pin, but he might get a head pin. Nope, not quite. Wood was strong on the roll, but didn't quite knock it over. It tipped, but didn't fall. Bryan Hebert, nice. Nice. Skinnier teeth kind of spare. I like the way those pins fell. They fell like almost exactly in the same way. Let's watch this shot again if we have a moment. He kicked the wood. And, moment, I guess I don't have a moment. All right. Sorry about that. The bowlers are raring to go. And there's a 6 fill for Bryan Hebert, leading the 4 horsemen left side. 32 after 3. And Bryan Hebert takes out all but the object pin on the 4 horsemen. 32 after 3 with the 6 fill and the 16 in the 3rd. And 9 or 10 now, and it will be 9 for Bryan Hebert. That's 41 after 4. Hope you're enjoying this match here from Amesbury, Massachusetts at Riverwalk Lanes. Bryan will take 8 out. Wasn't on the head pin, but will get a split stat for that. That's the 8 and the 9 down there. And if we look at that wood, that's going to be an interesting wood array. I would maybe hit it high on that frontmost wood. That's kind of my loose analysis. Not thinking it through that much. Bryan Hebert misses it, though, and takes the 9 out. Maybe it was safer that way to ensure a 10-box, but you never, well, I guess we'll not know. Oh, yeah, see, that was what I was worried about. I was worried it wouldn't have gone, so at least he got one more pin than I think he was bargaining for. That should be 50 after 5 for Bryan Hebert. We'll double-check those scores in just a second. 50 after 5 is confirmed for Bryan Hebert. With 1 mark, Bryan Hebert's at 1 strike, 2 spares. Chris Curley, no strike, 7 spares. As Chris Curley gets ready to bat, here's Chris Curley's story. He's currently 12 and 2. He's bowled 1 match as well as Bryan Hebert. His first home match is today, and so far he's got a decent amount of points under his belt. Riverwalk Lanes also offers a belt. Their King of the Rivah tournament. The winner gets the belt. You can do whatever you want with the belt until the next tournament. You have to defend it. Mark Ritchie just says, I don't want to know what you do with that belt. And frankly, I don't think I want to know either. Chris Curley, no mark on the second ball. He's shooting for a 7, 8, 9, or 10 box now. And it will be an 8 for Chris Curley, 8 after 1. But yes, do check out Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts. Again, renovated in 2013, owned by the legendary record holder of Candlepin, Mark Ritchie. Lots of history in here, very well decorated. I was actually taking a lot of B-roll footage today just to have, and yeah, there's a lot of history all over the walls, and it's just a great place here, Riverwalk Lanes, off of Amesbury, Massachusetts, off of exit 116 on 495 North in Massachusetts. Chris Curley leaves the 3. And for the 10 box, he'll sail into the gutter. That's a 9 box for Chris Curley. That's 17 after 2. Chris Curley just a couple planks off to the right of the head pin and drops 5. That's a Caleri, named after Bob Caleri of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. 2 different forms of the shot. And Chris Curley versus the Caleri. He'll punch the 9. Well, not punch the 9, but collide with the 9. And he wanted to go for the head pin, but just missed it a little bit. Sailed behind it. Chris Curley leaves the head pin for a 9 box. That's 26 after 3 for Chris Curley. If you like this channel, I encourage you to consider subscribing to help us grow. Check out the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook and YouTube, as well as my channel 3 Ball Spare on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, as well as Facebook, if you're into that. That's a 9 drop for Chris Curley. Leaving the 4 pin down there. And he's got it for a spare on the single with the wood. Chris Curley on the board with a spare this game. That's 36 and a bonus after 4. But a pin falls down there as it spots, so we're going to have to respot that, of course. While we have a couple moments, I'll tell you more about Riverwalk Lanes. So yes, in Amesbury, Massachusetts here. I took a particular shot of the entrance of Riverwalk because a lot of bowlers actually have some trouble finding the place. It's kind of in a residential-ish neighborhood in a mill yard area, and it's a little bit tough because you kind of see a fitness center and you get a little bit faked out by where it is, and of course the parking situation is a little bit tough in Amesbury, so you do have to watch out for that. And I hope maybe this footage will kind of help some people out in the future for, you know, be able to get into finding a Riverwalk in case it's not clear the first time you come here. Mark Ritchie tells me I believe there's a brewery a little bit beyond Riverwalk on the main street that you drive up to Riverwalk on, and they offer overflow parking a fair amount of days and times if the Riverwalk lot, which is very small, tends to fill up. Anyways, that should be 45 after 5 for Chris Curley. I can confirm that is correct. It's 45 after 5 for Chris Curley and 50 after 5 for Bryan Hebert, as we have approached the midway point of Game 4 here on the ACST. In this 5-game series, bowlers are switching their bowling balls over. Great to have you along. Riverwalk Lanes is located nearby the Powwow River, and if you park in the lot on Friend Street in particular, you can experience the River Walk to Riverwalk, which is likely where I think the house may have gotten its namesake from. That's a 6 drop for Bryan Hebert, 2, 3, 6, 10. Bryan Hebert sails into the right channel. Mark Ritchie is the owner of Riverwalk Lanes. He's a dude I've seen drinking a Dunkin' coffee at 8:30 at night. Truly, truly dedicated man. That's an 8 box for Bryan Hebert. That's 58 after 6. Mark Ritchie, I believe, holds the all-time high Candlepin high triple as well. So no slouch at bowling. Mark Ritchie is impressive bowler. He's really hypnotic to watch him bowl in the pro leagues too. Dude just very rarely misses. Bryan Hebert drops 8-9 on the head on the first ball. Second ball misses the target. Pin is the 1 and the 8 down there. This is for a 10 box. And an 8 box it shall be for Bryan Hebert. That's 66 and 7. So Bryan Hebert having a bit of a struggle this this match so far. Yet to take any points as of right now. Chris Curley has a guaranteed 6. The 5th game will be the last chance for the grand total pinfall point windfall of 4 points. Up to that point, this 4th game is up for 2 points. Bryan Hebert. And he'll punch 2 for a half Worcester. Bryan Hebert's a little bit off to the right. 15347. And he'll make it a 7 box. That's 73 and 8 now for Bryan Hebert. Six go down on the opening frame of the 9th box. An opening ball of the 9th box. 1, 8, 6, 10 for Bryan Hebert to shoot out for a spare. And he'll take 2 and leave 2. 1 of the 8 are left. No wood to shoot at for a 10 box. 8 box guarantee for Bryan Hebert. And that is an 8 box indeed for Bryan Hebert. That's 81 and 9. Amesbury, Massachusetts. When you're coming off a 495 driving into Riverwalk, it's a really pretty town. Really nice, really just kind of like, I don't really know how to describe the feeling, but it's just like a really pleasant drive coming into Amesbury. Like that suburban Massachusetts town kind of feeling. Really like that. Bryan Hebert on the Curley tries to break the Curley, and I know he really wanted that one. The 4 and the 7 are left down there. And he'll make that a 9 box. Bryan Hebert with a 90 in the 4th game. 90 in the 4th is confirmed as I look over there. That's a 4-game total of 353 for Bryan Hebert so far. 1 mark 90 in the 4th. 1 for 10 in the head pin with 2 splits. 1 strike, 2 spares. 6 tens. First ball average 4.8. Chris Curley so far 5.4 on the first ball on average. And here is the man himself, the home bowler, Chris Curley. And Chris Curley will take out 4. I was waiting for that 7 pin before I said anything. 4 horsemen left side, the 9 and the 10. Oh, and he's on the pocket. Will the wood take the 10? It'll touch the 10, but nothing doing there. Was a good bid. That goes into the channel. That'll be a 9 box for Chris Curley. That's 54 in 6. Six drop and a split for Chris Curley now. 2, 4, 7, 10. And I heard an after he threw that ball into the void, with the void staring back for Chris Curley. And that ball also misses the mark. That will be 60 after 7 for Chris Curley now. So, folks, I'm bowling in the International Candlepin Worlds this November, coming up here. Selling some raffle tickets. 1 ticket for 5, 3 tickets for 10, 5 tickets for 20. You can Venmo me at Skelly with information like your name, your address, phone number, email, etc., just so we can put that down for the raffle information. A lot of prizes available for that raffle at the World Candlepin Summit in Moncton, New Brunswick this November. I'll be supporting the Boutwells Massholes, so do check us out. We made the playoffs last year, so that's why you can, and we're mostly the same team this year, so we're a winning combination of a team, so do check us out this November. And if you want to support the mass holes, again, I'm selling raffle tickets. That's an 8-box for Chris Curley, 68 and 8. But yes, do check it out. There's $6,500 in prizes. There's several drawings throughout the day. And again, do check that out. Chris Curley with the headpin shot, spread eagle minus the 6. That'll be a 5-drop after all said and done. 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 for Chris Curley. And a rather unconventional way of taking a few pins out. He'll leave the 2 and the 2 and the 7. 8, 9, or 10 becomes a 9-box for Chris Curley now for 77 and 9. 1 box to go. Chris Curley needs a mark to beat Bryan in the 4th. Bryan Hebert potentially with 2 points from this game. With his 90, Chris Curley at 77 and 9. Chris Curley fires deep downfield. A little off to the right. 4 pins go down. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 10. 4 drop. Chris Curley misses the object pin, so Bryan Hebert will take the 4th game and will walk out of here with points today. At least 2, potentially a couple more. He could get 6 more if he takes the 5th game and the total back. So to be determined on that. That's an 8-box for Chris Curley. That's an 85. So Bryan Hebert takes the 4th by 5. 85 to Bryan Hebert's 90. Chris Curley and Bryan Hebert respectively. 85 is confirmed by Chris Curley. And the 90 is confirmed for Bryan Hebert. That's a 389 for Chris Curley and a 353 for Bryan Hebert. Bryan Hebert has to overcome a 36-pin deficit in the total pinfall to take the 4 points off of the total for the grand total pinfall. Bryan Hebert with a strike, and oh my goodness, I missed it. I'm so sorry. I was clearing the decks for the 5th game, but Bryan Hebert starts out with a strike. The second ball and the follow-up, first ball fill for the strike. The 6 pin is taken out for a lemon drop. But the strike fill will be completed here next. Second ball. Oh, and yikes, a 2 fill. Deserved better than that. Ball was more on target, but just punched the 3 up and over everything else. And that'll be a 3-box for Bryan Hebert. 2 fill on the strike. I know Mark Ritchie likes to say every single lane at Riverwalk Lanes is an ex-girlfriend. Take that for what you will. I thought it was just the way he phrased that. He goes, every lane has a different thing that annoys you. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. That's something. Mark Ritchie's words. 6 drop for Bryan Hebert, 1, 7, 10, 9. And he'll take the 1 and the 9 out, leave the 7 and the 10. And will be a 10-box. It'll touch the 10, and it won't knock it over. That'll be a 9 for Bryan Hebert for 23 after 4. Or 24 after 3, excuse me. Bryan Hebert, big shout out to Bryan Hebert in particular for helping me out with my audio setup. This season I'm rocking actual headsets, and I can have more than one person on the call now. And Bryan Hebert helped me out with that. Got me some equipment to get me kind of more acclimated to that, as opposed to, I had a good mic before, but it was just not super compatible with multiple commentators, and in terms of certain setups, it was a little bit annoying to carry around, so this setup is a little bit more manageable. There's a 9-box for Bryan Hebert. That's 33 after 4 with 1 box to go before Bryan Hebert finishes the first half of the final game, and Chris Curley comes up for his first 5 boxes of the 5th and final game here at Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts. Here's Bryan Hebert. Dropping 2. And another one goes down. Now it's a 7-pack. 3 down, 7 up. 6 on the right, 1 on the left. And it will be a 4-box for Bryan Hebert, leaving the 6-pack down there. That's 37 after 5. I will double check that in just a moment. 37 after 5 for Bryan Hebert. Yes, that is correct. So Bryan Hebert currently at 390 and counting. Chris Curley with a 4-game total of 389. Hope you've enjoyed this match today. I'd like to thank our ACST committee members, including our league commissioner Danny Finn, our Class E treasurer Maurice Perry, helping us with all the financials and whatnot for the entire league, which is just growing and growing. Our ACST statistician is Micah Imperado, and he does a great job. Link in the description for the statistics site. You can follow the ACST all season long. Whether you're a bowler or a spectator, we'll have you covered. And there's a spare for Chris Curley. Also like to thank, of course, Mark Ritchie at Riverwalk Lanes. Always does a great job keeping this place amazing. I'd like to thank Steve Abadili, who contributed some photo and video content for some of the B-roll and various materials for this stream. Check out his work, link in the description at stabadili.com. I'd like to thank viewers like you for watching, of course. I always like to shout out all you guys for watching. It's a 5 fill for Chris Curley on that spare. 15 after 1. I'll take one more out. No double spare for Chris Curley. Shout out to open source software this broadcast was created with, such as OBS, Krita, Linux, Kden Live, SyncThing, and OnlyOffice. Great software to work with, and you too can do this kind of setup. There's a 7-box for Chris Curley, 22 after 2. And Chris Curley will take a few more out on the first ball. It's a 2-drop. He mixes down a few more, leaves 4 on the deck, 6 down, 4 up. And a 6-box it shall be. Chris Curley 28 after 3. Here are Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts, formerly known as Lafayette Lanes. And there's Chris Curley on the pocket. Maybe a strike at that 4-pin falls backwards and against the wood, but not much hope there. A drop. Now for the spare. Chris Curley misses it. Chris Curley's last name is actually kind of a bit of a namesake to the way he throws his ball. Very curved, counterclockwise kind of throw. Tell by his form there. And there is a miss the second, get the third situation for Chris Curley. That's 38 after 4. With 1 box to go before we see Bryan Hebert for one last time this match. Chris Curley will drop 3 for a 7-pack. 6-pack on the left and the 10. Chris Curley will make it a 6 drop and a 4-pin standing leave. 1, 2, 5, 10. And Chris Curley will make that a 6-box. That's 44 after 5 for Chris Curley. Bryan Hebert looking at 37 after 5. Chris Curley up in the game by 7. Halfway through the 5th game, Chris Curley plus 43 in the total. Bryan Hebert is really going to need to mark out in order to take the total back, and we'll need to maintain pace with Chris Curley to take 2 more points out of the 5th game. So we'll see what happens here. There's Bryan Hebert dropping 6. Missed the head pin a little bit, but got a decent mix out of it. That ball looked good until about halfway down the lane, and it tailed a little bit towards the end. So this will be for a 10 box for Bryan Hebert now. It'll be an 8 box. That'll be 45 after 6 for Mr. Hebert. Bryan Hebert, I believe that will stay on. Yes. One of those things where I couldn't quite tell. Bryan Hebert's on the pocket there on the second ball. Leaves the 5 and the 7. Favorable wood down there. I think there's hope of this going. And there is hope. That's a 10 box for Bryan Hebert. That's 55 in 7. Be a shot on the 7 pin on the first ball for Bryan Hebert there. Second ball follow up. Will punch the 2, or the 4, excuse me. And on the finding the pocket there, that becomes a 7 box for Bryan Hebert. 62 and 8. Definitely could use all Markham here on out to kind of put up the wall of defense against Chris Curley at this point. Bryan Hebert, 6 pins go down, 7 pins go down. 1, 2, 7 left on the deck. And for the spare, that 7 pin, oh, is that resilient 7 pin. I thought it was going to go. Fortunately, it did not. This will be for the 10 box, and Bryan Hebert will leave the 7 there. Pin that really shouldn't be standing. That's 71 and 9 for Bryan Hebert. The second ball, can't stress, that really, one of those things where you get robbed sometimes in Candlepin. And Bryan Hebert will make that a 6 drop so far. Potential 101 for Bryan Hebert if he can get everything from here on out. Or 91, excuse me. Now it's up to an 80. Now it's down to an 81. 1, 2, 4, 8 for Bryan Hebert. And that's a 7. That's 78 for game 5 for Bryan Hebert. 78 for a 5-game total of 431 for Bryan Hebert. That strike in the beginning was promising. Just things just didn't quite go his way. All right, so it's now time for Chris Curley to make up. He has to get at least 34 to take this 5th game, or 35 technically. He's up in the total by 2, so he will take the 4 points for the total automatically. But now he's just fighting for the final 2 available points. Appreciate you watching this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match today. This Classy North match between Bryan Hebert and Chris Curley. Hope this was a pleasant viewing experience for you. I encourage you to strike, comment, and subscribe to the multiverse of Candlepin Bowling if you enjoyed this content. Such as your first stop, the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook, as well as YouTube. And there's a spare for Chris Curley on the 7 and the 8 to start out the second half. May not have enough time to show this replay, but let's see if I can sneak it in here. Both bowlers are bowling really fast, and sorry, I can't quite sneak it in, but on the fill, that's a 4 fill for Chris Curley. Missed the head pin, but a 4 fill is still decent, 14 box. Chris Curley tries to go outside on the head pin, leaves the 1 and the 2. 8, 9, or 10 for Chris Curley. And that shall be a 9. A 9 box for Chris Curley. 67 and 7. 6, 7. Curley with a quarter Worcester. There's one. We talked about that early in the match, and we finally see one, a real one, a quarter Worcester. Would have been a half Worcester if the 8-pin behind it went, but it didn't happen. Chris Curley on the outside of the head pin, and he'll get a spare out of that. Great shot by Chris Curley. Quarter Worcester spare. We can confirm that. Watch this shot. See, on the outside of the head pin, that's kind of the magic spot right there. Chris Curley not on the head pin, but getting a decent mix of at least 6, maybe 7. It's going to be, it looks like 6. Center diamond. 83-8 for Chris Curley. He does take the 5th game. He'll miss the object. So no spare. 1 in the 2. Waiting on the wood. That wood is, I'm pretty sure it's in, but we'll see. It's just going to be a doozy to shoot at. Yep, like I said, it's just going to do nothing but deflect. Nothing good there. That'll be an 8 box and a 91 and 9 for Mr. Curley. 3 marks this game, 3 spares, 1 to go. Chris Curley likely will be coming out with 12 points. Oops. It's a head-pin shot for Chris Curley. That's 7 down, split 7. 3, 4, 6. He'll take the 6, leave the 3 and the 4. And that shall be an 8 box for Chris Curley, and that will be the match for us. Chris Curley will finish with a 99, and that will be a 5-game total of 488 for Chris Curley. So Bryan Hebert will take 2 points, and Chris Curley will take 12 today. Chris Curley with no strikes and 11 spares. Bryan Hebert 2 strikes, 2 spares. I'll give you the final stats here. So yes, Bryan Hebert will be taking 2. Chris Curley will take 12. 431 for Bryan Hebert, 488 for Chris Curley, your final total scores. Bryan Hebert averaging 4.7 pins on the first ball. Chris Curley averaging 5.3 pins on the first ball. 4 splits for Bryan Hebert, 9 splits for Chris Curley. Bryan averaging 86, Chris Curley averaging 98. Chris Curley winning 29 boxes, Bryan Hebert winning 17. Here's some stats for graphs. If you're into more advanced statistics like that, I'll just, you can pause the video if you wanted to see any of these additional insights and numbers for the head pins and the first ball averages and all of that. The fill bonus in particular, Chris Curley really pulls ahead, especially in the 5th game onwards. You can just see the gap widening and widening there. So anyways, so that should just about do it for us. Again, check out the Mass Holes Worlds raffle tickets. You can Venmo me at Skelly with the info, or private message me, whichever way you want. It's just the info for the raffle ticket is all. I'm offering 1 ticket for $5, 3 tickets for $10, and 5 tickets for $20. I'm at Skelly on Venmo. So anyways, that should just about do it for us here at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. And I want to thank you for watching. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to 3 Ball Spare on Facebook, Kick, Twitch, and YouTube, as well as the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook and YouTube. So anyways, that should be it from us here. Hope you have a great one, and we'll see you at the next Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Have a great one, everybody.